Matt Strauss is the director of the Detre Library and Archives of the Heinz History Center, where he oversees the acquisition, description, digitization, and preservation of the organization's library and archival collection. Matt joined the History Center in 2008 to manage the organization's first film digitization project. Since then, he has directed archival processing and digitization initiatives funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities, the National Historical and Public Records Commission, and the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. Welcome, Matt.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It is time for some movies. I can't think of a better day to do that with the snow coming down earlier today and the temperatures dropping a bit. I'm going to be talking about some films that we've digitized recently here in the archives. So first, a little bit about the history of home movie making. Of course, today it's trivial to shoot your own film and to edit it and share that with the world. But 100 years ago, when this technology first became introduced to the public, it was a bit harder. So here we see an advertisement from the Chicago Tribune in 1924, where we see folks filming their children playing. This was right around the time when you start seeing advertisements pop up in newspapers across the country. And if you're going to buy a camera, you probably would want to watch what you shot. So you would also be buying a screen, a projector, not to mention the film. And at that time, it was that could run you about $2,000 to $3,000 in today's money. So it was not an insignificant amount of money to spend on a hobby. Not everybody could do it, which is a good segue into our first filmmaker that we'll be talking about today. Her name was Rachel McClellan Sutton. She was primarily an artist, and she painted scenes around Pittsburgh. A number of her paintings are in local museums, including the Heinz History Center and the Carnegie Museum of Art. She was also the daughter of Dr. James McClellan, who was one of the founders of what would become Shadyside Hospital. And for much of her life, she lived at Sunny Ledge, which is still in existence, the family home. It is now a boutique hotel at the intersection of Wilkins and Fifth Avenue. And at that time, there was a string of mansions on that stretch of Fifth Avenue, and it earned the nickname Millionaire's Row. So Rachel is coming from a family that had some money, and she could be an early adopter of this new technology. And here's a view of Sunny Ledge. So the first film we're going to watch, it's from the late 1920s, and it's going to depict mostly Oakland. It's going to start off with some scenes that she's probably taken from her porch at Sunny Ledge of Fifth Avenue. You'll see some activity there before the action moves to Oakland, where we'll see the Syria Mosque, the Pittsburgh Athletic Association building, the Soldiers and Sailors Hall, and then finally ending on the Cathedral of Learning under construction. And a note about the sound you're about to hear. I took a little creative liberty, and I added in some sound of a film projector playing. So I wanted to warn everybody. One of our staff members mentioned it's kind of like a snowblower. So I want to make sure that you all know I did not add in a sound of a snowblower. This is a sound of a film projector, because for those of us who grew up watching home movies and seeing films in classes, it's kind of a nostalgic sound. So I'm going to play our first film. All right, so that was the first film. We have another one that Rachel took. It is going to show downtown very quickly. We're going to see the Mon Wharf. This is late 1920s, early 1930s. And you'll see some cars parked kind of precariously on the Mon Wharf at that time, before again moving to Oakland. And we'll see, at this point, the Cathedral of Learning has been constructed, and Rachel is actually on top of the cathedral, filming some of the locations around the Oakland neighborhood from the air, including Forbes Field, St. Paul Cathedral, the Carnegie Institute's of Technology's campus. And then the film will end, and you'll see briefly Rachel herself. I guess she gave the camera to somebody so she could get in the film. You'll see two women, and she'll be the shorter of the two. All right, so we're going to jump forward in time a little bit. Don't want to watch that again. All right, so the next series of, it's just one film actually, but it comes from a series of films that were from the Pitcairn PTA. They were filmed in the 1930s, early 1940s. And we don't know too much about the circumstances here, other than these films were donated to the History Center in 1987 by a principal at one of the schools in Pitcairn. And then for those of you who aren't familiar with where that is, that's about 12 miles east of downtown Pittsburgh. And in this film, we are going to see first a cooking class, some kids practicing cheerleading, and then some children coming down on a slide. And I want to, after the film is done, I'm going to ask if anybody has any theories about that slide. So that footage of kids coming down on a slide, that's like, you know, a few seconds of what seems like 3 or 4 minutes of, it must be every student coming down on that slide. So I cut out a lot of that. Does anybody, what do we think? Is that a playground slide, or does anybody have any theories? Fire escape, right. So that was something that was common at that time, to have a slide that was part of the fire escape process at a school. Okay, so jumping forward again in time here, we have some films from a gentleman named Richard McCall. And again, we don't know too much about him, but he was a resident of Brighton Heights. He photographed and filmed streetcars. That was a particular interest of his. And we are going to see 2 films from him. And this first one is actually just going to be downtown, and the focus you'll see is going to be first on the point of Pittsburgh. You'll see an exposition hall building there on the point. And then the action will switch to Nixon Theater on 6th Avenue. And it seems like this is, judging from the what is playing at the Nixon Theater, this is the last performance of that theater. So it perhaps was the occasion for Richard to come down and decide to document it. All right, and then our last film is also from Richard, and this is something he called McKeesport 56, the last day, 1963. It is the last day of operation of a streetcar, the McKeesport 56, that ran between McKeesport and Pittsburgh. So we're going to see the last operation of this streetcar. You'll see for part of it, Richard is actually on the streetcar. He's filming it from the front of it. And then you'll see it leave a busy downtown McKeesport. It'll cross the Youghiogheny and Monongahela rivers before it enters into this kind of fantastical forest area that is part of the Lincoln Place and Hayes neighborhoods, before it emerges again to cross the Monongahela a second time on the Glenwood Bridge, and then before it finally ends up in downtown Pittsburgh. And there's some advanced editing going on here because at some points Richard is filming from on the streetcar, and then sometimes he's off of the streetcar watching it go by. So he did multiple takes here and edited it together for a cohesive whole. All right, so we've told you a little bit about what's in our attic this afternoon. We'd love to hear from you about what's in your attic. Do you have films or photographs or letters, organizational records that document some aspect of local history? Would you be interested in perhaps sharing those with us? We'd love to talk with you after the program. And with that, we're going to end the formal presentation aspect of this program and transition into some Q&A. So, and then after that, we'll have all the speakers will be around for questions and discussion, and we'll have some of the films playing as well after the program. So thank you.